She thought it was just a blind dinner with a stranger, but what Naomi didn't expect was to fall for a man who seemed ordinary, only to discover he was one of the richest tech billionaires in the country. What began as a quiet conversation turned into a whirlwind of secrets, paparazzi, and a love that defied status. Will their connection survive when two worlds collide? You have to hear how this emotional, heart-gripping story unfolds. Where in the world are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more unforgettable stories like this one. Naomi Carter had never been one for surprises, especially not the kind that involved strangers, secret dinners, and cryptic phone calls. But here she was, standing in the middle of her tiny apartment on a Tuesday afternoon, staring at her phone in disbelief. "Excuse me?" she asked, pressing the device closer to her ear, as if clarity would make it sound less absurd. "Yes, Miss Carter. You've been selected for the Meridian's Midnight Encounter dinner experience this Friday evening," the woman on the other end repeated with professional cheer. "Arrival is at 7 p.m. Dress however you feel best represents you. No phones, no press, no expectations, just an evening of connection." "I never entered any contest," Naomi muttered, still trying to make sense of it. "Your name was submitted by a Brielle Monroe. She listed herself as your best friend." Naomi groaned, already picturing Brielle's wide grin and overly enthusiastic nod. "Of course she did," she said under her breath. Ever since Naomi's messy divorce 2 years ago, Brielle had made it her mission to pull her out of what she called emotional hibernation. Naomi didn't see it that way. Working at the local bookstore, taking night classes, and scraping together a new life felt less like hibernation and more like survival. Still, the Meridian? That place was legendary. People waited months for a table. Naomi had once circled it in a magazine with her ex-husband as a dream anniversary spot. That had never happened. Life had turned left. Hard. "Fine," she said suddenly, surprising herself. "I'll go." "Wonderful," the woman replied, as if she'd been expecting that exact surrender. "Just be yourself." After the call ended, Naomi dropped the phone on the couch and sighed. "What have I gotten myself into?" The next day, she met Brielle for lunch at their usual cafe. The second Naomi mentioned the dinner, Brielle gasped, nearly knocking over her iced coffee. "You're going? I didn't think you'd actually agree." "I didn't think I would either," Naomi admitted, tearing her sandwich into pieces. "But something about it just felt right. Or maybe I just needed a break from my never-ending pile of accounting textbooks and rent bills." "It's fate," Brielle beamed. "What are you going to wear?" "I have no idea. It's not like I have a closet full of gala gowns." "You don't need one. Just wear something that makes you feel like you." That was easier said than done. On Friday night, Naomi stood in front of her mirror for the third time, debating between a structured blazer and a faded blue dress she hadn't worn in over a year. The dress won. It wasn't fancy, but it felt like her. She added a soft layer of makeup, a spritz of perfume, and took one last breath before stepping out into the cool evening air. The taxi dropped her at the Meridian precisely at 7. The doorman nodded as though he expected her and ushered her inside, where a tall hostess greeted her with a warm, secretive smile. "Miss Carter, this way, please." Naomi followed her through a corridor that veered away from the main dining room. They stopped at a door marked "Private." "Your evening awaits," the hostess said before opening it. Naomi stepped into a softly lit room that looked like a scene from a dream. Candles flickered from every surface, casting golden halos on the walls. A single table sat in the center, perfectly set. At it was a man. He rose when she entered. He wasn't what she expected. Not some slick, arrogant stranger, but someone strikingly normal. His charcoal button-down matched the shadows of the room, and his smile was reserved but genuine. He was tall, with deep eyes that seemed to carry stories he wasn't ready to tell yet. "Hi," he said simply, his voice smooth and grounded. Naomi tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Hi. No names," the hostess gently reminded from the doorway. "Enjoy your evening." Then she disappeared, leaving Naomi alone with the stranger. He pulled out a chair for her. "Shall we?" As she sat, Naomi's nerves faded slightly. Maybe this wasn't a mistake after all. Maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something she hadn't known she needed. Naomi couldn't stop thinking about the man with the quiet smile and the eyes that seemed to see right through the walls she'd built. She'd told herself it was just a dinner, just one strange, beautiful night. But when she woke up the next morning, the way he'd listened, the way he'd looked at her like every word she spoke mattered, lingered like a melody she couldn't shake. She tried to distract herself with laundry and her business homework, but her mind kept drifting back to that candlelit room and the man she still didn't know the name of. That afternoon, a delivery arrived at the bookstore. Naomi was behind the register when a courier stepped in holding a rectangular package wrapped in brown paper. "Naomi Carter?" he asked. "That's me," she said, signing for it, eyebrows furrowed. Brielle happened to be visiting, perched at the edge of the checkout counter with her third iced coffee of the day. "Ooh, secret admirer?" she teased, wiggling her brows. "It's probably just the shipment of vintage bookmarks I ordered," Naomi muttered, though her fingers trembled slightly as she peeled away the paper. Inside was a book, an old, worn, leather-bound edition of Anne of Green Gables. Her breath caught. This wasn't just any copy. It was a first edition, with gold-embossed lettering and pages that smelled of time. She ran her fingertips reverently over the spine. "No way," Brielle whispered, inching closer. "That's got to be worth hundreds, maybe thousands." Inside the front cover was a small ivory card with neat, looping handwriting, for the woman who reminded me that simplicity still matters. EQ. Naomi stared at the initials. EQ. That had to be him. He remembered, she murmured. "You talked about that book at dinner?" Brielle asked. "Yeah, just briefly. We were talking about childhood favorites, and I said I used to read this one under my blanket with a flashlight. I haven't even thought about that in years." Brielle gasped. "It's him. The mystery dinner guy. He tracked down a first edition of your favorite book and sent it to your job." "Naomi, this is not a casual move. This is a man making a statement." Naomi didn't know what to think. Her heart swelled, but a small voice in the back of her mind whispered that things like this didn't happen to women like her. Still, she couldn't deny the flutter of hope that curled in her chest. The next morning, just as she was adjusting a display of poetry books, the bell above the bookstore door jingled. She turned, expecting a regular, but there he was, EQ, casually dressed in dark jeans and a navy sweater, holding 2 coffee cups. Naomi froze. "You found me," he smiled. "You mentioned turning pages on Maple Street. I didn't think you were listening that closely." "I was," he said softly. "I brought you coffee. I hope that's okay." She stepped forward and took the cup from his hand, their fingers brushing. Her skin tingled from the contact. "You didn't have to send the book," she said, her voice low. He shrugged. "You lit up when you talked about it. I thought you should have it." "Thank you," she said, still stunned. "It's beautiful." They sat together on the little bench in the corner of the shop, where the morning sun streamed through the windows and turned the dust motes into glitter. They talked about nothing and everything. Naomi's dream of traveling by train, the quirks of her customers, the way Elias, he finally shared his first name, never liked attending tech expos despite his work. "What exactly do you do?" she asked. He hesitated again, just like he had at dinner. "Nothing worth talking about today." Naomi gave him a long look, but didn't push. Instead, she said, "Would you like to go for a walk later, after I'm done here?" Elias looked up, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I'd like that." As he left, Naomi watched him through the window, her fingers still warm from the coffee cup. The man was still a mystery. But now he was a mystery she wanted to unravel. Slowly, carefully. One chapter at a time. By the end of the second week, Elias Quinn had become a quiet, steady rhythm in Naomi's life, like the turning of pages in a well-loved book. He'd stop by the bookstore every couple of days, sometimes with coffee, other times just to browse the shelves and listen to her talk. Their conversations had stretched from books to childhood dreams to late-night fears they'd never voiced aloud. But even as they grew closer, a part of him remained just out of reach, locked behind a calm demeanor and gentle deflections. Naomi tried not to question it. She told herself she didn't need to know everything, not yet. What mattered was that he made her feel seen, heard, valued. And after years of being overlooked and overlooked again, that feeling was addictive. Still, something gnawed at her, quietly. The way he always paid in cash, How he never talked about his job, never mentioned friends or family. He never invited her over and never answered calls in front of her. Every time she came close to asking for more, he'd offer a smile and change the subject so smoothly it felt natural. Until it didn't. Have you ever Googled him? Brielle asked one afternoon as they shared lunch at a taco truck parked near Naomi's bookstore. Naomi blinked. Googled him? Yeah. Elias Quinn? That's not a name you hear every day. You don't think it's a little weird that he won't talk about what he does? Naomi frowned. He's private. I kind of like that. Brielle gave her a look. Girl, don't be naive. Mysterious is sexy until it's shady. Naomi rolled her eyes, but the seed had been planted. That night, alone in her apartment, Naomi opened her laptop. She typed Elias Quinn into the search bar. The results loaded, and her heart stopped. There he was, her Elias, on the front page of multiple business news sites, in a tuxedo beside celebrities and global CEOs. Elias Quinn, founder and CEO of Quiron Technologies, worth an estimated $12.7 billion, one of the most private figures in Silicon Valley, avoids interviews, rarely makes public appearances. Article after article painted a picture of a man she didn't recognize. A tech titan, a disruptor, a ghost in the business world who rarely left a digital footprint beyond his work. She scrolled through photos. In some, he looked polished and camera-ready. In others, he looked like the man she knew, the man who brought her coffee and smiled when she talked about story time with the neighborhood kids. But now those moments felt suspended in the air, fragile, like they could vanish if she looked too closely. The next morning, she tried to go about her routine. She stocked bookshelves. She rang up customers. But her mind wouldn't stop spinning. She couldn't decide what hurt more, what he hadn't told her, or the fact that he had walked into her life pretending to be someone simpler than he was. Then the world caught up. A photographer, lurking outside the cafe where they'd shared a quiet post-museum dessert, snapped a photo of them kissing. It hit the internet within hours. By the time Naomi woke up, her phone was exploding. Missed calls, texts, emails. Brielle was the first to break through. Turn on your computer, she said breathlessly. Now. Naomi did. And there it was, splashed across entertainment sites, social media feeds, even the morning news. Billionaire Elias Quinn's mystery girlfriend identified, bookstore clerk from Easton. Her name, her job, her night school schedule, even details about her divorce, all laid bare for the world to consume. The ringing phone interrupted her panic. Elias, she stared at the screen for a second before answering. Naomi, he said, his voice tight. I just saw the news. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure sorry covers it, she whispered, her heart pounding. I know, he said. That's why I need to see you. Please, I've already arranged everything. I'll send a car, pack a bag. Let me explain everything in person, away from this madness. She hesitated, glancing at her window where reporters were already beginning to gather. Okay, she said, her voice barely audible. 30 minutes. The driver will bring you to the marina. When she hung up, she moved on autopilot, packed quickly, called her boss and faked a family emergency. And when the sleek black car pulled up, she didn't think, she just got in. By the time they reached the private dock, Elias was already waiting, his face drawn with tension and regret. The moment their eyes met, Naomi felt something crack inside her. Relief, anger, hope. She didn't know what came next, but she knew this wasn't the end. It couldn't be. The sailboat cut through the water like a whisper, gliding across the waves beneath a pale blue sky, but Naomi barely noticed the beauty around her. She sat beside Elias, silent, the salty wind tugging gently at her hair while questions screamed inside her head. Everything felt unreal. Just 2 days ago, they were strolling through the park, laughing over street tacos and talking about their favorite movies. Now, she was on a luxury boat with one of the most powerful men in the country, hiding from paparazzi like she'd wandered into someone else's life. Elias stood at the helm, one hand steady on the wheel, his jaw tight with the weight of everything unsaid. He looked more at home here, barefoot on the polished deck, than he ever had in a cafe or bookstore. There was a quiet control about him now, a man used to being in command of more than just the wind and water. Naomi finally spoke, her voice dry. So this is who you really are. He didn't look at her right away. This is part of who I am, he said quietly, but not the part I wanted you to see first. She stared out at the horizon where the sea met the sky. You had so many chances to tell me. I know, he said, his voice catching. But you treated me like a person, Naomi. Not a brand, not a net worth, not a headline, just a man. I didn't want to lose that. Naomi wrapped her arms around herself. You didn't just keep a secret, Elias. You built a whole version of yourself. You let me fall for it. I didn't lie, he said, turning toward her. I just held back. At first, because I didn't know where this was going. Later, because I knew exactly where it was. She looked at him then, really looked, and saw the fear behind his controlled expression. So what is this exactly? I don't know what to call it, he admitted, but it's the most real thing I've had in years, and I was terrified that the truth would break it. They reached a small, secluded cove just before dusk, the boat gently rocking as Elias dropped anchor. The silence between them was no longer sharp but heavy, filled with too many things left hanging in the air. He showed her how to help secure the lines, explaining each knot with quiet patience, and for a while, they moved together like they had that first night, without expectations, without labels, just two people doing something new. As darkness fell, they rowed to shore and walked to a tiny seaside town tucked behind weather-worn cliffs. No flashing cameras, no curious stares. Over a simple dinner of grilled fish and lemon pasta at a tucked-away bistro, Naomi let herself enjoy the calm. Elias was relaxed again, smiling softly over wine, talking about the stars, the sea, and the books he used to read as a kid before computers took over his life. But when the conversation drifted back to the real world, Naomi's walls rose again. What happens when we go back? She asked, not touching her dessert. Back to the city, to the cameras, to the chaos? Elias leaned forward, earnest. I'll do whatever it takes to protect your privacy. I've already spoken to my security team. We can keep things quiet, discreet. That's not the problem, she said, frustration creeping in. I don't want to live my life avoiding cameras and hiding behind tinted windows. I don't want to be the girlfriend who becomes a footnote in articles about you. You're not, he said quickly. You never could be. Naomi, you're the first person who's made me want to step away from all of that. But you didn't step away, she said. You brought me into it, without giving me the choice. His face fell, and for a moment, he looked lost, like a man used to solving every problem but this one. Tell me what you need, please. I'll do it. Naomi looked down at her hands. I need time, she said softly, to think, to breathe, to figure out if what we have is strong enough to survive the world you live in. He nodded slowly, pain flickering across his features. I'll give you that, he said, whatever time you need. Back on the boat, he showed her to the main cabin while he took the smaller berth below deck. You can sleep here, he said gently. You deserve peace tonight. As he turned to leave, he paused in the doorway. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I'm falling in love with you. Not because you didn't know who I was, but because when I'm with you, I remember who I want to be. He didn't wait for her reply, and Naomi stood alone in the candlelit cabin, heart racing, unsure if she should hold on tighter or let him go. The next week moved in slow motion. Naomi returned to her apartment in the city, but nothing felt familiar anymore. She had left behind something fragile and unfinished on that boat. A conversation that still lingered in her chest like a breath held too long. Back in her world, reality hit with full force. Reporters still hovered outside the bookstore, though not as aggressively. Her manager gently suggested she take a little more time off until things settled, and even Brielle's attempts at distraction felt thin, like she was performing joy instead of feeling it. The quiet hurt the most. No calls, no texts, not even a note tucked into a book. Elias had meant what he said. He was giving her space. But as the days passed, space turned into a void, and the void turned into doubt. Maybe they really were too different. Maybe a bookstore clerk and a billionaire weren't meant to collide outside of a storybook. She tried to dive into her schoolwork, but every line blurred into memories of his voice, his hand brushing hers, the way he listened like no one else ever had. By Monday morning, Naomi finally decided to face her life again. She put on her most comfortable jeans, tied her hair back with a navy ribbon, and returned to turning pages, determined to reclaim something of her before the media whirlwind. She was reshelving a stack of new releases when the bell over the door chimed. Without turning, she called out automatically, Welcome to Turning Pages. Let me know if you need help finding anything. A pause, then a voice she hadn't heard in over a week. Low, steady, familiar. Actually, I'm looking for something specific. Naomi froze. Her heart skipped before she slowly turned. There he was, Elias. Standing by the display table, casual in jeans and a soft blue button-down shirt, holding a paper bag in one hand and 2 coffees in the other. His eyes searched hers with something like hesitation and hope, all wrapped together. She took a shaky step forward. "What are you doing here?" "I missed you," he said simply. "Every day." She glanced past him to the door. "Are there photographers outside?" "No," he said. "I was careful. No one followed me. No headlines, just me." He stepped closer, holding out one of the coffees. She took it, their fingers brushing once again, electric and achingly familiar. "I know I messed up," he continued, his voice quiet. "I should have told you the truth sooner, but when I was with you, I didn't want to be Elias Quinn, the CEO. I just wanted to be the guy bringing you coffee and listening to you talk about books." Naomi nodded, eyes stinging. "And that's the man I fell for." "I've made some changes," he added. "I've stepped back from day-to-day operations, promoted my COO. I'm focusing on things that matter to me again." "Like what?" she asked. He smiled. "Like starting a reading initiative, mobile libraries for rural communities. I want you to lead it." Her eyes widened. "Me? You know books. You know people. And you know what it feels like to be overlooked. You're exactly the person who can make a difference." Naomi didn't know what to say. Her heart swelled with something like pride, something like love, but it was the next thing he said that truly cracked her open. "I brought you something," he said, reaching into the paper bag. Inside was a vintage train ticket, wrapped in ribbon. She gasped. "Is this?" "You said your dream was to take a train across the country, to watch America go by from a window seat, just talking with someone who listens." She blinked back tears. "When?" "Next month," he said. "Just us. No phones, no expectations, just being." Naomi looked at him, at the man who had both complicated and brightened her world. Slowly, she smiled. "It's perfect." Weeks later, they boarded that train. For days, they traveled through golden fields, winding mountains, quiet towns, and endless skies. Naomi read while Elias napped. He sketched while she journaled. They talked for hours, shared stories, laughter, silences that no longer needed filling. One evening, as the train crossed a river at sunset, he took her hand. "Naomi," he whispered, "will you keep building this life with me? Not as bookstore girl and billionaire, but just us." She rested her head on his shoulder. "As long as you keep showing up with coffee," she said softly. Their worlds hadn't blended perfectly, but piece by piece, they'd chosen each other. And sometimes that was the most extraordinary story of all. Sometimes life surprises us in the most unexpected ways. Not with grand gestures or picture-perfect plans, but with quiet moments that grow into something extraordinary. Naomi and Elias's story reminds us that love isn't about titles, wealth, or fairy tale endings. It's about being seen, truly seen for who you are, not what the world expects you to be. In a society obsessed with image and status, finding someone who values your authenticity is rare and deeply precious. This story teaches us that vulnerability is strength, and honesty, even when it's hard, is the foundation of trust. Relationships built on shared dreams, open hearts, and mutual respect have the power to bridge even the widest gaps between two very different worlds. It also shows us the importance of taking a chance, even when fear and doubt whisper that you're not enough. Because sometimes the very thing you're afraid to reach for is the thing that was meant for you all along. So wherever you are in the world, we'd love to hear from you. What city or country are you watching from today? And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story just like this one. There's always more to discover, and we can't wait to share it with you.